Sure, that's good. Peace to y'all, man. Good morning, y'all. Peace to y'all. All right, students are coming in. This morning, I'm doing a lecture via Zoom to two of the criminology classes at Assumption University in Worcester, Massachusetts. Been working with and collaborating with professor and social worker Erica Gagne. She's just a beast, man, and she's an innovator. So she was actually one of the first people to bring me into a university or college setting. So I'm always grateful for that. Talk about prison, tell my story, especially to the young people that are getting ready to, you know, be successful in their learning and get into the fields of criminology. They may be police officers, they may be lawyers, they may be judges. So the whole point in telling the story is to open their eyes. A lot of these kids, they don't know about prison, and that's good. Like, that's a beautiful thing that they don't know about prison. But that being said, there's going to be a percentage of those kids in that class or young people
7140.
they're getting ready to get cranked up, that are going to go into positions where they're going to be making decisions or impacting people's lives, etc.
And then the passcode. 283156.
So it seems like they're getting some stuff ready. But yeah, man, so hopefully get to answering some questions too, man. And anybody that's attached to any schools, anybody, man, juvenile centers, schools, wherever, man, I'm pulling up. Y'all don't even got to pay for my flights. I got the flight. Shout out to my mother-in-law. You know what I'm saying? Just tag the schools, or if you got direct connections to the
And
schools,
so, and then we have this again at 12:30. Yep. Oh, you come back.
let me know.
Thank gosh. Good, it's my 12:30 class. Thank you. Well,
But that's what we doing, man. What kind of glasses are these? These are from Zilul, man. These glasses were $7. Shout out to Zilul. I am not paid by
Chris,
the.
you there?
Oh, I am. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you see us?
I can, most definitely.
All right, good. Perfect. All right, can you see the students? Yes. I
Yeah,
have
yeah. I've got two angles going on over here right now.
myself, myself, whatever.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So just to say one thing, this is Christopher Willard, Mr. Willard, if you want to call him that. This is the individual that I spoke to about who did 17 years incarcerated, and for our purposes, I think it's very interesting because he is raw and real and honest and authentic, and I've had guests with it before, and I hope that you get a lot out of it. Please feel free to ask questions. He likes questions, and that's that. All right, good.
I can get cranked up. Good morning again, everyone. How y'all doing this morning? Good. Y'all just waking up. How many y'all drink coffee in there? No coffee. We got some coffee drinkers. Okay. I'm getting cranked up, man. I'm on my third cup already, man. But thank y'all for allowing me to speak, man. If I'm a little energetic or loud, I just gave y'all the reason. I wake up every morning grateful. I wake up every morning before the sun does. Grateful to be alive, man. Grateful for the opportunity to speak to young, brilliant minds like yourselves. You know, people that are shaping now, and that'll be shaping the future. You know, anytime I have the opportunity to speak to people that are younger than me, smarter than me, brighter than me, they got better vision than me, I'm grateful for the opportunity to just be heard. I came simply to tell a bit of my story, just a piece. And I think it's really relevant, obviously, to the class, and I want to highlight what happens when a kid from the middle class that had good parents that never got in trouble one day finds himself in prison. Um, Starting off, just giving you a snapshot about my life. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, and good parents, good mother, father. They were there, they were present. They had some issues, but not unlike many families. And they gave me options and opportunities. They made sure I knew what was right, what was wrong. They kept me in sports. Scholastically, I excelled. I was an AB honor roll student. And when it came to athletics, I was decent. I was getting picked first in gym class, and then through high school, I had some looks at me. There was one thing, though, for me. I was still moved by what was going on around me. Um, when people ask me, how did I go from this teenager that never got in trouble, that was excelling, because the next thing I want to mention to you is that at 17 years old, I enlisted in the United States Air Force, active duty, and coming out of basic training, I was an E3, which is pretty good. Anybody familiar with military service? But yet, in my words, I was still a follower. I didn't yet really know or understand the world. I didn't understand consequences. And on top of that, for whatever reason, I had began to become this rebellious sort of teenager or young adult. I became arrogant. I didn't want to hear or listen to the adults around me. They didn't understand what I was going through, what I was saying, what I was thinking. How could you? A lot of people that were talking to me, they were 40, 50, my parents, whatever. I'm 17, 18, 19. And my pressures were different, as a young adult than maybe you guys are, I'm sure, looking at the landscape of today. But I had pressures nonetheless. And because I didn't feel like the older people or those that were trying to give me positive words could really relate, I ended up starting running with my cousin. Older family member, some of his friends, they were all about 10 years older than me. At this time, I was 19 years old. Just fast forwarding it because I really want to put the emphasis on what happens after you get sentenced. But one night when I was over at my cousin's, I was on what they call recruiter's leave, where I was able to come home for 2 weeks. And my cousin says to me while we were drinking, having a drink, he says, "Man, I owe some people some money, and I need you to take me and my friends down the street." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Man, I need y'all to take me, I need you to take me down the street, me and my homeboys. You don't have to get out the car, nothing. We're going to be in and out." And I want to tell you guys, like the first 2, 3 times, I was like, "Nah, you tripping," because like I'm not doing none of that. But I'm drinking. They're passing the bottle around. We call it liquid courage. And probably about the fourth, fifth time that bottle came around, about the third or fourth time he asked, saying, and, "Yo, you're my cousin. I need you. I'm in trouble. I got to pay my bills. I owe this money. Da, da, da." I finally caved in. And I want to tell you, I justified in the moment. And to my young people, anytime I get an opportunity to speak to my young people, man, and you face that opportunity where things could go all the way left, and hopefully y'all don't live any type of lifestyle near the way that I did in this moment. But if you ever run into a pivotal moment where you feel like this isn't right, pay attention to that gut feeling. Don't try to justify that. Because I knew when he was telling me, "Yo, just take me down the street. You ain't got to get out the car." I felt it. I knew something wrong was going to happen. But then I justified it because he gave me this next piece of information. He said, "Cuz, we're going to go in there with a BB gun. Nobody's going to get hurt. It's impossible. They're not real bullets. What could happen?" I started this thing, in my mind. I said, well, if we do get caught, which I know I'm not going to get caught because I'm inside the truck, I'm not getting out. My cousin and his friends, they're not going to tell on me. What's the worst that could happen? A year or two? And that's a horrible way to think as a young person. But again, I was rebellious, became slightly angry over time, agitated. I wasn't really happy with being in the military. I wanted to be back home with my friends, all of this stuff. And I finally said yes. And I drove him and his two friends down the street. They ran into a restaurant. I'm a 19-year-old kid. I'm not ever going to sit here and proclaim like I was a mastermind, but he had told me, he's like, man, we're going to pull away with thousands of dollars. We're going to, and in my mind, I thought it was going to be worth it. They ran into the restaurant when we got there. He told me exactly where to drive. I didn't know where we were going. They got out. When I was in that truck, it was probably only about 2 minutes that they were gone. But I had never been more scared in my life. I knew at this point in time, it was a point of no return. Also, I'm from Chicago. My mother, while I was in the military, moved out to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're out here playing robbers in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the former capital of the South, where if you guys study law, you'll know that it's really strict out there. Again, I'm not really understanding the whole board. By the time they got back to the truck, I remember because it was about October. It was October. It was dark. It was rainy. It was cold. You know, those October nights. They open the truck door. The light pops on. My cousin's dropping money on the ground. His two homeboys, who would end up being my co-defendants, by the way, spoiler alert, as they're running in, one of them screaming out, "I dropped the handkerchief. I dropped the bandana." I think he said bandana, whatever. But the thing he had on his face. And we couldn't go back to get anything. We couldn't go get the money. We couldn't get, because by the time they got in, before they could even close the doors, I was gone. No headlights, driving down the street, almost ran into somebody. And remembering, I just threw my life off. It's over with. I knew it. And I did not understand how I went from going to my cousin's, visiting him, to drinking, to now I'm driving us away from a robbery. I got them home. I got back to where I was living at the time with my grandmothers, or staying there. And that whole night, I was paranoid. I was looking out the window. If a cricket chirped, it didn't matter. If anything moved, because I just knew the police were coming to get us. If you've never been to prison and you're sitting in that room, you've never been to jail, you've never been in handcuffs, this is the moment where I ask y'all, man, don't ever put yourself in that situation. Because I want to fast forward, right? I told y'all I came from good family. My mother didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't cuss, none of that. My father went to work every day, gave me a hug, played ball. I had good stuff going on. And one day, I knew it was hitting the fan. The girl I was messing with, she calls me. She says, the detectives called me. I said, what do you mean the detectives called you? She said, well, they said they know that you did a robbery with your cousin and everybody. I said, why are they calling you? And I would later on find out that her father actually worked for the Joint Task Force that would come after us. Because of my decision to get in the car with them one night, eventually I would have to turn myself into the police after a warrant was issued for my arrest, a grand jury indictment. I flew home. I already knew what was going on. My mother did not yet. My father didn't live in Virginia at this time. And I told my mother, I said, I need you to take me to the police department. She said, why? What was it, an accident or something? Which tells you I was never the type to get in trouble. I said, no, Ma, I gotta go turn myself in. And she broke down. She started screaming. And again, my mother's never, I don't even remember my mother cussing. I got one of those types of moms that fed everybody on the block. And she was shaking, and she couldn't even drive. I said, just give me the keys, Mom. And I drove us to the police department in Stafford County, Virginia. I was shaking. And all I could really think to myself, I said, this is where the nightmare begins. I had watched movies and TV shows. I had, at this time, already heard that my cousin and his co-defendants, or our co-defendants, had got locked up on separate charges because they were committing a slew of other robberies and other offenses outside of the one we committed that night. And I was there in the police department. I walked up to the desk. And before I could finish saying my name, two detectives walked out and cuffed me behind my back. My mother screamed out again. And she was just screaming over and over again, let me hold my son. Look, I'm not a mama's boy, but I'm my mother's son. And as a son, as a man, you have that urge to protect. And I knew in that moment, even at a young age at 19, because at 19 we're wise, but I knew that I caused my mother some of the deepest pain she'll ever feel, and I couldn't protect her from it. Eventually, the officers let her hug me, and I couldn't hug her back because I was cuffed, and they brought me behind the wall. When they brought me behind the wall, here goes another pivotal moment. They immediately brought me into interrogation room prior to me asking for legal counsel, which means they still had the opportunity to speak to me. And the detective sat down in front of me almost within like 5 minutes, one of the detectives, and he says, hey, we know you're a good kid. And I said, oh man, they might let me go. And he said, that being said, and you're the youngest, all you got to do is sign this paper, testify on your cousin and his friends, just say they're the ones that put you up to it, and you can go. You can go home right now. He said, matter of fact, what time does your mother cook dinner? I said, I don't know, usually around like 6, 7. He said, I'll have you home by 5. I looked at the clock, it was like 3:45. I sat and I thought for like 30 seconds, and then I just said, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't do that. Detective looked at me and he said, kid, he said, I'm trying to help you. If you don't take this opportunity, there won't be another one. This is some serious stuff. I probably paused for maybe another minute. And then I looked back at him again and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. The reason I decided not to, because people ask me, the reason I decided not to is because at that moment in time, I didn't understand legal process. I didn't really understand in that moment how I got indicted. I didn't want to think that my cousin or his co-defendants were, talking or running their mouths or whatever. And my mind just didn't understand crime yet like that. And that's why I didn't do it. And also, I didn't want to cause any more potential division or anything amongst my family, because that'd mean that I'd be testifying on my cousin. And I already knew we brought enough to the family. The detective got up from the table and he looked at me and he said, you don't know what you just did. He said, you just threw your whole life away. He said, I'm going to make sure that you end up getting a life sentence. I said, for a BB gun? He said, you must not understand how the law works or where you're at. He said, as a matter of fact, if the judge lets you back out, make sure that your sons or your grandsons never come back to this place. And he meant that. As a professional standards, whatever, the way he communicated that was how he chose to. He said some other things too in a moment, but he switched. I remember he went from warm and inviting to cold, and that's it. And immediately I was taken to solitary confinement. I didn't get a chance to go to the bullpen. Solitary confinement was a shock. I didn't even get a warm up when it came to imprisonment, jail, anything. Solitary confinement at Rappahannock Regional Jail was called Yellow Brick Road. It still is. And when they let me in it, all the walls were painted yellow, and it looked literally like an insane asylum when you look down the hallway. And if you've never lost your freedom before, if you're used to getting in the car and driving, if you're used to going out to the movies and it is a sick feeling when you're handcuffed and you're being placed in a 6x9 cell, and it's just concrete. There's no windows. The mirror is scratched up. The toilet is steel and it stinks and hasn't been cleaned, and all that's in there with you is a cement slab. That's it. You got your prison jumper on or your jail jumper, your shower sandals. That's it. And at 6 p.m., eventually they bring you, as I learned, your mattress. Until 6 a.m., they take it back from you again, and you got to either sit on concrete or stand all day, including how you eat your meals. Your meals come through a tray slot in the door, and the food, I can tell you, I don't even understand how I was able to eat it, but I didn't have a choice after 2-3 weeks, because it was either that or starve. I remember trying to take a sip of the milk one morning, my second morning there, and I wanted to throw up because it was in a plastic bag. It smelled. It wasn't like the milk that I knew from home. The food was just, you know, and I could hear people screaming. I'm sitting in this cement box, used to being free. I was, you know, and now I'm sitting in this cement box and I'm listening to grown men scream. And I hear this one guy in particular, my third night there, he's telling the COs, he said, I see, I'm hallucinating. He's not saying I'm hallucinating. He said, I see rats. I'm seeing rats everywhere. And the CO came up to the door, opened up the tray slot, looked in there. He said, there's no rats in there. You're probably hallucinating. And the guy screamed for 2-3 hours more straight. And what happened was he had just got brought in there, just like we all did, and put into solitary confinement. And they didn't do a med check. And in most jails and prisons, they're supposed to check your medical vitals and all that before they just stick you in a box, because they don't know if you're under the influence of something. They don't know what's going on. But what happened was they put him in this box and he started to withdraw from alcohol. And for the next 16 hours, I listened to a man scream until the screams no longer existed, until they ceased. The officers that walked back and forth, there was no standing count back there or anything, so they just look in and see him in the bed and assume nothing was wrong. And they didn't get it until he didn't get his second tray. By then it was too late. He had a seizure and he passed away. That was all within my first week of incarceration. And again, I was not one of those kids running around in the hood and I didn't even grow up like that, y'all. I promise you. I played little league. My mother cooked, and now I'm in this environment. To make matters worse, about my 8th or 9th day there, my tray slot opens up and I'm assuming they're going to stick my tray in there. Instead, what happens is they sit a recording device, old school. Back in the day, they had the little mini cassette tape players. And he sits the thing down. I look up, and it's one of the detectives. And he presses play, and it's my cousin, and it's the two older, his homeboys, co-defendants, all of them had said that I was inside the place, and I was at other places with them. And he said, you're in real trouble now. I ended up, from one incident, getting 18 felony warrants. I got 6 robberies, 6 weapon charges, and 6 conspiracy charges. And I never touched the weapon that wasn't even a real weapon. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. You can harm somebody with a BB gun. But it wasn't to put it in perspective, each weapon charge was a mandatory 3 years. Each one after that was 5. So off top, that was 28 years I was facing mandatory. None could be suspended by those. For each conspiracy charge, it was 10 years per. Those could be suspended, but that was an additional 60 years that I was facing. So that was 88 years. And then the final 6 indictments were the robbery charges. And they gave me 6 robberies, and each one of those was a life sentence I was facing. The sentence was minimum 5 years, maximum life sentence. So I was facing, at 19 years old, as somebody that had not ever gotten into trouble before, drove some people, they robbed a place with a BB gun, and I was facing 6 life sentences plus 88 years. And immediately, here's the next part. I didn't have the money for a lawyer. And immediately when I met my attorney, my public defender, I knew I was in trouble. I have to highlight this part because, as we know, the justice system isn't always just. A lot of places within it needs to be overhauled, examined, looked at. My public defender, the first time I smelt him, literally, because when he walked up in my face to meet him, he smelled like Jack Daniels or some type of liquor early in the morning. I'll never forget it. I just did a skit on one of my social medias where the guy's collar's all out his thing and all that. That's how he looked. He didn't comb his hair. And this is who I had defending me in the court of law. But again, I don't really understand everything about the legal system. I'm thinking, hey, maybe he's just a cool public defender and he's going to, I don't know. I don't know anything, but we couldn't afford a lawyer anyways. He quickly told me that because I didn't take the offer the detectives tried to extend, that I would receive no plea deal. And to receive no plea deal is crazy because the majority of the guilty verdicts in this country are done through plea deals. Plea deals are usually offered prior to a jury trial or a trial in order to offset costs, the taxpayers, all that good stuff. And not just the wait, we don't want to waste time, right? They're trying to get people into prison. They don't want to, plenty of people on the docket. So they extend pleas. And usually the pleas look good to somebody that's facing a lot of time, usually. If you're facing 20 years, you've never been in trouble before, the DA may come in and say, we'll offer you a plea of 5. Generally, that's how it happens. I was given no opportunity to that. I had a public defender that was an alcoholic or at least had drinking issues. I had a family that knew nothing about the legal system, nowhere to go, didn't know where to turn to get the information. And that was really the sum of it. I found myself in the bullpen one morning, getting ready to go in front of the judge to be sentenced. And my public defender walked in there and he said, the best I can do for you is get you 34 to 55 years to do. 35 to 54 years to do. And I started doing the math. I'm 19. I said, if I do 35, I'm not coming home, to my 50s. He's like, well, that's the best I can do. I said, I can't do that. And my public defender literally looks at me, and this is not how it's supposed to go, y'all. He looks at me, he says, well, I'll give you a couple minutes to decide what you want me to tell the judge and them or the prosecutors. But other than that, I don't know what to tell you. And he walked out right after he said that. And I'm sitting there as a 19-year-old, again, not understanding. We were wise in those years, but I'm green to the legal system, the justice system. I'm trying to figure out in that moment how much time I can tell them I'm willing to sacrifice from my life and how much time I can make it through in the prison. I knew the nightmare had begun. I just watched a 16-year-old that got found guilty of 2 robberies get sentenced to 87 years from Philadelphia. I had 6. I was like, in my mind, I said, I just want to be home before I'm 40. Public defender walks back in. He said, what do you got? I said, man, just tell him I want to be home before I'm 40. That's all I ask. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. You sure? I said, yeah. And that was it. We walked out there. The bailiffs led me out there. I stood in front of the judge and nobody was there but my mother. She spoke her piece. I spoke my piece. The public defender told him, what my request was. And the judge handed, he listened to me. He said, you want to be home before you're 40? I said, yeah. He said, I sentenced you to 144 years in prison. I said, hold on. In my mind, because I said, I want to be home before I'm 40. Well, let me back it up. I was drinking with my cousin. I took them to the restaurant. They robbed it with a BB gun. I didn't tell on anybody. They did. I never touched anything. They were doing other stuff. Now I just got sentenced to 144 years in prison. Hey, listen. If you don't get anything else from what I'm saying right now, I just need y'all to know that in the blink of an eye, one wrong decision, a bad day, getting into an argument, any of that, running with the wrong crew, not knowing who you're running with can lead you in a situation like that. A very real situation. Like, seriously, it happens. People are getting over sentenced right now. As I'm giving y'all this lecture, there's a judge handing down an over sentence guideline right now. Without a care in the world. And they'll go play golf later on. So I got sentenced to 144 years in prison. But the next thing he did start suspending stuff. By the time he started suspending years from my sentence, my overall sentence would be 144 years, all suspended, but 19 years with 50 years good behavior. So that would mean that I'd had 19 years to do in prison at the age of 19. And once I came home, after indefinite probation, I would have 50 years of good behavior over my head, which means literally to this day, if I get into an argument with somebody at the red light and, hey, just for a little tussle, they could send me, which is scary. But I push past that. But this is the justice system. This is what's going on. And this is the life that not just I live, but thousands are living right now. Now, most people would say like everybody in prison is a monster. Like people be like, yo, everybody in prison deserves to be dragged. Everybody needs to be. Something really horrible just happened to Robert Brooks and countless others within confinement. And what I want to tell you is, depending on what side of things you look at things, maybe you say, man, nobody in my family's ever been locked up. That is good. That is a great thing. Maybe you come from a family where a few people have been locked up. I get it. But overall, if we can't agree on one thing, it's that we should not want monsters to return home from prison, right? Even though I'm here to tell you everybody in prison is not a monster. There's plenty of people in there that suffered from addiction, had mental health issues, made a bad decision, got into an argument, whatever, 30 seconds. But outside of that, they were shining stars in community. But there are some monsters that exist. But what I won't tell you, or what I want to tell you is prison is creating them. I'm always the one that says prison is creating monsters. Prison is not solving any issues or problems when it comes to incarceration, crime, any of these things. What's even scarier is now throughout a lot of states, Department of Corrections, and if you get bored, just research Department of Corrections where I'm at in Georgia. They don't even have control of the prisons. They don't. In the last 3 months, we've averaged the most homicides in the history of Department of Corrections in 2025. In the first 3 months, we got close to 30 homicides. It's an insane asylum in prison. I went from standing there getting sentenced to now being on a bus in shackles, and I was led to Sussex 2 State Prison, which is now, thank God, closed. Sussex 2 State Prison is a level 4 maximum security prison. Over 70% of the camp had life sentences. 90% plus were violent offenders. And you knew it. I had never been to jail. Was one thing because there are levels to it. Jail was rough. Jail was confinement. There was a couple of fist fights, a couple of arguments, but they're guys from around the area, so it's like things are easier solved, believe it or not, in jails. At least that's how it was when I was there. Things have changed now. Jails are like prisons now. But in prison, nobody cares about you. Don't nobody care about your reputation, where you're from, who you know. You got to go through that moment where you got to prove yourself. The thought that I know right now that there's somebody that's 19, 20 years old that never got in trouble prior to this, that's being walked into a level 4 prison, makes my stomach sick, because it's happening every day. Because I'm not just saying it because it was me, but there's no way I should have been sent to that prison. I should have been sent to a level 2 something. I shouldn't have got that time. And again, I'm not just saying that's because it's me. I'm saying that because now they use my case to help overturn law and get people home in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But what happened when I went to Sussex 2 State Prison, aka Saigon, is I started to turn into a monster. And no, I'm not sitting here and trying to act like I was some super, like the most, no, I wasn't the most tougher or not, but I got tested. My second day there, I was sitting on my box in the pod observing my surroundings. It was nothing again but concrete and steel. There were 43 cells. Everybody wore burgundy jumpsuits. Everybody looked angry. Everybody was scheming. Everybody was plotting. Everybody was talking trash. I could see the snakes. And I'm sitting there minding my business. And I remember what the old heads had told me. They said, when you go down the road, you're going to get tested. And how you respond or react is going to determine how you live the rest of your life in there. I said, I'm not living in there. They said, well, you got to look at it like that when you're in there. And I held on to the thought that I was going to hang on to the streets until this moment. Because at that moment, 5 guys, for no apparent reason, they walked over to me. They started to tell jokes. I knew they weren't the type of jokes that they wanted me to laugh with them. And the minute I stood up, because I felt like they were closing in, they jumped me. They not only jumped me, they stabbed me. For what? Like literally for what? As I was being led back out the breezeway, because in that penitentiary, they've got officers in towers inside the pod that point big old shotguns that shoot off rubber pellets and pepper spray and whatever. But they didn't see it jump off in time because the officer goes back and forth between 2 pods in his vantage point. But by the time he let off, I'm looking down and I'm bleeding out my shirt. And I said, I'm not going to make it. I've been in prison for less than a week. I said, I'm not gonna make it home, man. They took me to medical. They didn't take me to the hospital. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It was closer to a flesh wound. But man, for what? Why? And this is what prison is. It's madness. It's mental health issues. It's predators. It's people that are running in groups. It's now a situation where you can go in with a DUI and end up with a life sentence or never coming home at all. If you end up in the wrong, I know a guy that went down the road to prison because he had multiple DUIs. They ended up sending him up the road, and now he's sitting there. He went from 18 months to 22 years because he was defending himself. Prison's nasty like that. I found out later that the reason those guys jumped me is because they mistaked my identity for somebody else, a gang member that they thought had got transferred. They thought it was me. Somebody had tested. I did something. By then, we had to sort it out. And I'm not gonna, bore you with prison politics, but I will tell you we don't use words in there. Gratefully, because I got jumped, I was an out-of-towner. Some other cities, older guys, whatever, they stood around me. They knew I didn't cause no problem. They seen that. But that was it. That was the moment that I let go of freedom. That was the moment that I let go of the world. I knew very clearly, as one of my cell partners, noted, that you've got to become good at prison in order to get through it. I had no tattoos when I went to prison. I was not a gang member. Good education, all that. Within my first 5 years, I had all these tattoos. I was an active gang member. I was running the yard. I've done interviews with Ian Bick, locked in with Ian Bick, Matt Cox, all these bigger platforms to tell that part of the story. I'm not going to get into that, but that's what happens when you go to prison. The politics in there. You have to you're put in situations where you have to make decisions in order to survive. One of the decisions I had to make was I had to choose to run with a car or a gang or a clique because I didn't want to keep getting jumped. I didn't want to keep just ran whatever. I made that decision and I immersed myself even further into prison. Prison takes the life and the light out of people. I remember having conversations with guys that spoke like they were going home tomorrow and they had 600-year sentences. True story. You look at their release date, it's like 637 years plus life, because those are the type of sentences that the judges pass out. And I'm not saying that some of these guys don't deserve it, because monsters do exist. I was housed literally with individuals that were labeled as serial unalivers. Taking people's lives, just unaliving people. And those same people would just walk up and ask me what the score of the game was on the dayroom TV, like everything was normal. Men were attacking other men in other ways. Men were being robbed in there, extorted. I watched my probably second week there, as we were going to the chow hall, walking down the stairs, I walked over a body and was told just to keep going, look forward. About a year on my camp, a good friend of mine, Anthony, he had 2 days left after doing a 10-year sentence. And I remember singing songs, we rapping or whatever in the chow hall. We worked in the trade room. We used to be washing those trays, just living miserable in there, but getting through the days. This is my bro. And 2 days before he was getting ready to go home, he went out on the rec yard and he got jumped by some gang members and they took his life. They stabbed him 2 days before he was supposed to go home. And there were multiple incidences like that. And they continued on. One of the hardest things that I think a lot of people try to overlook about prison is the impact that it has on the mind. If you are strong enough to survive prison, that means you've went through some things, or you've seen some things that would make a lot of people, and that's okay. I tell people all the time, man, going to prison is not a badge of honor or a trophy, but it's just the reality for a lot of us. and the life that we live and the fact that we had to see and experience and endure some things. In prison's supposed to be, and I want to go back to it, it's supposed to be about rehabilitation. It's supposed to be about when that individual goes in there, you better them, you help them, get them opportunities to get to counseling, therapy, whatever it is that they may need. So when they come home, they don't want to commit more crimes, so they're able to be more successful. And that lowers the chance of them coming to a community near someone and doing something bad. But that doesn't happen in prison. They warehouse you. That's it. They warehouse you. In most pods, the prisoners run the pod. When the officer comes in, they're scared. They don't want to be there, and they know they're outnumbered. The average count is 1 officer to 86 prisoners. And when you're not getting paid that much, not enough to risk your life or get in between two people that are trying to take each other out, there's really no safety in there. I remember my first one-on-one fight. Remember, I got jumped. But my first one-on-one fight was when my cell partner had a mental health crisis, and locked us in the cell and started to attack me. There's no help there. It was one of us was gonna have to finish it so we could get out the cell. Rehabilitation in prison usually starts about 6 months prior to a person's release. And for anybody that's sitting in that class that may ever find themselves working in the system, I will say that the system can be better. The system is in place for a reason. We need to have prisons. We need to have jails, judges, officers, all the rest. But we need to have good thinking, right-hearted, just people in those positions. And we need to have forward thinkers. The reentry aspect starts at 6 months. And I ask you just rhetorically, if somebody's been in prison in a violent environment where they've been in fight or flight, had to defend their lives, whatever else they've witnessed for 20 years, do you think 6 months of a half-hearted attempt at reentry rehabilitation will solve anything at all? I'll tell you no. That's what's going on in most prisons. Most prisons, guys get through 10 years, 15 years, and then they're told in the last 6 months to go to these groups and these programs and these processes. But honestly, the people that are facilitating the groups, they've never lived that experience. So there's a disconnect, and that's okay that they didn't live that experience. But now we need to bring more people with voices that have. But also, mental health, the mental health component is not there. There's a massive mental health crisis in our country. Over 70% of those incarcerated suffer from mental health issues or illness. Prior to going in, usually that's the trauma that led them, or while they're in there, they ended up with PTSD, anxiety, etc. So what you have, honestly, is a bunch of men and women coming home. Not saying everybody fails, but within the first 3 years, 60% of people go back that were incarcerated. So that tells you we're not doing a very great job, especially when we've got the most people incarcerated. I got to check the numbers again, but we're always up there. I think we're number 1 per capita. So what happened to me when I came home from prison? One, I came home with a wife, and I got to include that as part of the story. Yes, that does happen. I ended up meeting and marrying my wife. Well, I met my wife in 2017. We got married in 2019 in the visitation room in the prison. Our honeymoon was an hour visit, and we just celebrated our 5 years. We're still together, and I'm grateful. But I remember prior to me coming home, she was telling me on the phone, she said, "It's really hard out here." I said, "Baby, prison is hard. That's the easy stuff. That ain't nothing. I got that." She said, "No, it's really hard out here." She's like, "And things have changed." I didn't really understand what she said, right? If you go to my TikTok page, if any of y'all get bored, and I'm proud of my TikTok page. I got 146,000 followers, and my story reached 44 million people last year, just on that platform. And last month, 9 million people. I get to travel and tell this story and all this good stuff, but it's only because of the hard parts that I went through. And I'm trying to get people to understand what prison is and the impact of it. But when I came home from prison, if you look up there, there's a video of me when I walk out prison gates. And my family's happy. Everybody's smiling, there's, crying tears of joy, and I look like a statue. I'm numb. Matter of fact, if you look real hard, I got a twitch in my face, in my eye. PTSD was taking me out. It was taking me out prior to me coming home. There was no mental health support in there. When I tried, it was cosmetic. And when I came home, I kind of lost it, y'all. I was faced to realize how much the world had changed. How many of y'all were any of y'all born in 2003 or before? Okay. So I always ask that question, but put things in perspective too, man. In 2003 when I got locked up, smartphones didn't exist. People didn't text. Facebook didn't exist. And then I came home in 2020, January 13th, 2020, and everybody had a phone, smartphone, everybody text. They had cars that drove themselves. They had big old touchscreen menus. I wasn't used to none of this. Now everybody in prison's got a cell phone, right? When I was doing time, everybody didn't have a cell phone. If you did, you probably had it for a month before somebody told on you. So I was out here and there was a massive shift in technology. My first day home, I was at McDonald's. We just stopped to get some coffee on the way home. It was like a 2-hour drive. And my family ordered and they left me. They all ran off. They were excited, but they ran off to go wash their hands, all that stuff. And they left me in front of the ordering screen. And I was stuck. I didn't know how to work the order. I didn't understand. And some of y'all like, yo, what? No, I never used it. And I was in a violent proverbial time capsule for 17 years. Time stopped in there initially, especially when it came to technology, people, etc. Eventually, nice lady, she's like, you just order like this. She showed me how to use it. But there was I didn't know how to use the self checkout. I didn't know how to pay for gas at the pump. Listen, and I'm just being real with y'all. It is what it is. I was behind the curve and then I was in prison and I came home from 19 years old. I came home at 36 years old. And when most, adults my age got homes with mortgages, and I actually did have a home with a mortgage, but they know what's going on in the world. They're successful. I had absolutely no skill set but a barber's license, and I was a pretty good speaker because I was the inmate advisor in there. I worked in the law library. They let me work with counselors, some other opportunities that aren't always given to guys in there. But man, it was crazy out here. And then if y'all remember, which I know you do, 2020 was the same year that the pandemic, got into full swing. So when I came home and I'm expected to readjust to society and put my foot on stable ground, the whole world was upside down. It was crazy. I needed mental health support. The whole world needed mental health support. And I remember I was driven, my PTSD and everything got even worse because I was sitting there with this thought that I had waited 17 years, fought through this, survived through this to get home from prison. And now the world's going to end. This is my life from prison to pandemic. It was hard, but I had support. And to speed it up, great support. And I worked really hard. I went on to open up a vocational school, Lasting Layers of Beauty Institute. It's got 5 different trades where I serve as executive director and was actually honored as principal of the year as a felon that did 17 years in prison. I've been on NBC and whatever, Atlanta News First and all these different, newspaper, all this stuff. Because of the work that I'm doing in the community, I'm not doing that. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying it so humble because I know individuals that were incarcerated that, believe it or not, now work in law enforcement. I know a Dr. Barber who did 10 years. The stuff that I do is just highlighting the work that there is a percentage of people that are coming home from prisons are doing, which is great work. I've been able to start a nonprofit, which, by the way, I got internships, y'all. I always say that to the college people. But I got internships. But I started a nonprofit. I work in the recovery field because I stopped drinking. I started drinking when I first came home and almost lost my freedom again. If I had more time, I'd tell that story too. But I went from a convicted felon who's now working in business development. And the position that I have is usually held by people that have at least bachelor's degrees. I've got a GED. I also work in the mental health field as a peer mentor, where I work with young adults that have certain learning disabilities. And let me tell you guys, I don't know where everybody's from. I'm from Chicago. I go in some very affluent neighborhoods and work with some people that probably would never let me in their house. And I get it. You look at my tattoos, you might be like, but I'm given the opportunity. People trust me, with their family members. And like I mentioned, through social media, globally, we touch millions every month. And grateful for that. Not because of the views. That is a mirage, although I teach a class of social media and marketing, and there's some benefits, obviously, in the digital world. But it's more about the interaction for me. It's more about the fact that a young person from Mississippi calls me up or texts me or, excuse me, messages me or whatever and says, yo, I was thinking about getting in that car, but I'm not. Or it could be the 50-year-old mom that's battling cancer, stage 4, that says, I'm fighting through this because you fought through 17 years, you know? And there's power in that. So what I want to end this is because I know, I hope nobody's been to prison, obviously, in there. But there's this one connecting piece, right? No matter how old or young you are, you may have went through some hard moments, tough things, and you're going to keep living and doing great things in this world, and you're going to see some hard moments and tough things. But just remember that this one piece right here, the toughest moments that we go through, those are the moments that define us. Those are the moments that make us unique when we walk into a room. Those are the moments that strengthen us, that empower us. I could have decided to let 17 years in prison, 144-year sentence at any given time, me being physically attacked, at any given time I could have gave up. I could have folded, I could have fed into the stereotype, I could have did all that. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm sitting in an RV because my house burned down January 23rd. I got to get that rebuilt. There's so many things that have happened since I came home that I could have quit. But because I went through the worst of the worst, I refused to. And I just ask y'all, 1, never go to prison. 2, never go to jail. 3, if you're going to work in the legal system, the justice system, anywhere, go in there with a right mind and a right heart. Go in there with your own thoughts and see what's going on and ask yourself how you can make a change. Because like I started this thing off, I already know each one of you is brighter, smarter, better vision. I wish they let 22-year-olds run for president right now. No offense, I'm not getting in there. I'm just telling you, young people need to be shaping and moving us forward. You guys got a great weight and responsibility on your shoulders, whether in this field, that field, whatever, just in life. And I just want y'all to remember that, man. Your tough moments aren't in vain. They're not sent to destroy you. They are sent to equip you for the next chapter. I want to say thank y'all for letting me speak this morning and give a piece of my story. I did want to open it up if there's any questions for a couple minutes, if y'all had any. And again, just thank you for the opportunity.
Anybody have questions? This is your first legitimate case study. Go ahead.
Okay, so you said that you joined the gang in jail. What did you have to do to join that? Did you have to trade your food, your commissary, your services, or what did you have to do?
No, that is a great question. You're the first person to ever ask that question. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. I love questions because it helps me develop certain talking points as well and gives me an idea of what people may want to know. But so when I was at the jail, I started this little crew called the Collar Crew. Unfortunately, when you go to jail, prison, incarceration, there's a learning curve generally. And for that environment and just being all the way transparent, I was educated and a lot of people weren't. On top of that, I learned how to manipulate the environment, and I wanted to get me, my cell partner, and my homeboy out there so we could serve trays. Then we got labeled. By the time I left the jail, I had a gang card. they called us the collar crew, by the way. It's not like I really started a gang, but we just used to wear our collars popped on our jumpers. It was so corny, but it was an act of defiance to the guards because they used to say you had to be in compliance. And being that I went down the road with that gang card, I already had a little bit of a reputation following me where people could check up on that. But after that incident that involved those five gentlemen jumping me, through some prison politics, the car that I ended up joining was the one that backed me. They didn't like the fact that I got jumped. You know, I just built a relationship with them, you know, started eating with them, working out with them on the yard, and they seen that I was a thinker and they blessed me in. So, yeah, I didn't have to give up anything. When people say that you got to get beat in or do all this stuff, I'm here to tell you I don't know anything about that. You do in a lot of cases, depending on how you're coming in. But I came in with rank. I'm not bragging about that. I think it's corny, honestly. But yeah, that was a part of my life. They blessed me in, and you know they gave me the keys to really move the guys however I wanted to in the yard because they knew I could think.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
I think too, like, just to add to that, I think that a lot of people who know people who are in gangs know that they have to do something to get into gangs on the outside.
it's. Can I speak to
So
that?
that's why people think that.
Can I speak to that too?
Yeah.
It's totally different outside, inside. I want to say that too. Outside, you totally yeah. You're putting in 9 times out of 10, whatever you put in work, all that. Inside, it's more politics and political. If they see a guy in the yard and he's got 6 homeboys that he's cool with, they'll offer him, hey, bro, y'all come with us because they want numbers in there. So there's more, more politics. But what's crazy is most of your members on the inside, when they come home, they don't, it's over with. They were just that way on the inside.
Go ahead.
Another question. Is there like anybody in there that's kind of like off limits not to touch, like obviously like elderly people and like obviously you weren't off limits because they jumped you, but like
Yeah.
do they, you know what I'm saying, like not go towards a certain type of people or do they just like see you and like just respect you and just like leave you alone?
Yeah. So, no, it's a great question. So my entire time, I only in prison, not jail. I only got into that one-on-one physical altercation when my cell partner locked us in a cell. After I got jumped, we handled that, but I didn't have any issues because of respect. But not respect because but just because I was really respectful in the environment and I helped everybody around me. But and when I say that, like I used to write letters for them. I told you I worked in the law library, so I was strategic. If they had, any type of rank or whatever, I was trying to help them to keep their people from off us. Because you got to be strategic in there. But as far as people off limits, nobody's off limits. But if you are a high ranking gang member or something, somebody will definitely go get permission first before they do anything. They have to. And that's just prison politics. Unfortunately, I've seen elderly attacked. I've seen elderly unalived. I've even seen a man disabled in a wheelchair violently attacked with a colostomy bag already prior to.
Go ahead.
Were there any like habits that helped you like get through prison or like skills you developed that really like got you through it?
Yes, sir. Great question, man. I love that question. So I was a real knucklehead for about the first 7 years of my prison sentence. But fortunate enough, I had some older guys in there that they knew I had some sense and they stayed on me. And I started reading. I then started getting involved in every single program they had in there. I didn't care what it was. If it was a program and it was positive, I signed up for it. And when I say I read books, that's why my eyes are bad. I read, I don't even know how many books in there. But so I got into a reading habit. So my mind kept going because in prison, the conversation's limited within the pod and people aren't thinking about the world. So I got a lot of books on philosophy, different types of literature, biographies, anything that would expand my vocabulary and just that. the programs helped me just interact and engage and continue to have conversation that, you know what I'm saying, was valuable in society versus how the average person communicates in prison. And then I also signed up for every job they had where I could be working with the counselors, anything like that. And I also worked out. I had a very strict, workout routine in there, which would help with stress. But that was the gist of it all, man. Just staying positive and productive as possible, no matter all. You got opportunities in there. It's just you got to fight for them.
So Heather, go ahead.
So when the detective came to your cell and kind of just showed you the tape of like you basically being like thrown under the bus, you were sentenced, and so you weren't given the opportunity to kind of like defend your side because obviously you were only involved in the one robbery. So was that because you kind of didn't throw like your cousins under the bus, or was it like the public defender that you had?
Yeah. So because I didn't take the initial offer, I was never offered a plea deal. And when that happens, essentially they don't care what you say. And my pathway to sentencing was either to stand in front of a jury, which means whatever sentence they gave me, I wouldn't be able to appeal it or, try to get back in court for resentencing, or plead guilty in front of a judge. So essentially, that's what I did when I was speaking about the sentencing portion. I just went out in front of the judge, pled guilty, not knowing what the sentence would be. But yeah, it was because I didn't cooperate. And as far as my public defender, he was an alcohol. I wrote the bar up on him. I don't care. He was an alcoholic, or whatever. He was just highly unprofessional. And I do want to say there are some good public defenders. There's some great public defenders, but it's a large percentage that are probably burnt out, or caseload doesn't give them the opportunity to pay attention to an individual's case. Because yeah, I think things should have been different.
Go ahead. Have you ever like talked to your cousin again since?
Yeah. It's so 2023. I made it. I made my way to go see him. I got approved. I've been back into some of the same prisons I was housed in to speak. Got my visitation rights, and I went to go see him, and we had a conversation. And the conversation was really just me telling him I forgave him. He was sentenced not to 98 years, so he'll never be home, because he, had committed other crimes, and, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I went to go see him. Just really, it wasn't even for him, y'all. I'll just be honest. It was really for me. But I wish him the best, and believe it or not, I send him money every now and then, and, I do what a cousin can do.
Anybody else have questions?
Those are really good questions,
Go
y'all.
ahead. How are you able to meet your wife?
Yeah, so well, prior to meeting my wife, it's a good question. I was actually in a 6-year relationship with a staff member on Greensville Correctional Center, and because these things do happen.
Happens.
Yeah.
Believe me, it happens.
Yeah, depending on the type of individual you are behind those walls, you can make things happen, or you just get attention. Life is life, love is love, feelings are feelings. It is what it is. And her and I are still good friends, but when we parted ways, we parted ways because I was locked up. I didn't want to be in a relationship. I was doing a lot of group facilitation work in prison. The counselors had allowed me to actually start facilitating groups on building better relationships and all this stuff. And her friend came into the institution and saw me speak, who was married to one of the prisoners already there. And she just told her friend, like, yo, you got to see this guy talk. He's business minded. He's got a nonprofit. And we had agreed to talk as far as business. We're going to figure out some things on a nonprofit. And I don't know, the first phone call, I knew she was going to be my wife. If that makes sense. I can't really, I'm glad none of y'all have been in that situation. But yeah, we met over a phone, over a 20-minute Global Telling phone call, which is not ideal.
I just wanna say too, I think for us, we've been to that, I took everybody in this class, well, I took people who go to the House of Correction in Worcester. And I try to take students, every
That's good.
semester, and one of the things you'll see is you walk in, even as a visitor, you're already incarcerated.
Yeah.
You can't just walk out, you're in, then they have to open a door for you, then they have to open another door for you, then you have to open another door for you, which kind of shows you how you're sort of incarcerated. Imagine now you're working there 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11
Oh,
to
yeah.
7, whatever your thing is. In some ways, become like a different community. So a lot of corrections officers, yes, they cross the line, not because, you know, I don't know, I think it's very like sort of insular kind of environment that we don't know anything about, but you get a taste of it when you visit.
Yeah,
And
it's a world unto its own, and if you're spending 12 hours in an environment around certain people every day or 3-4 days out the week, you know, so it happens. But I do want to say that unfortunately a lot of those relationships don't last. I do want to highlight that, and that's typically because of the trauma that comes home with the individual that was incarcerated or other barriers. But yeah.
well, any other questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead, John.
Are you still close friends with any people you met in prison?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I just did a 5-year vow renewal prior to my home burning down. I got a beautiful home out here, and we did it on the front lawn. And my side, my wife's side was family. My side was I call them the good brothers. They had rode down here from Virginia. Being in there for 17 years, being a brother, you know, to my brothers in there, they are now my family. So you know, we be around each other's kids. Our mothers know each other. We went from seeing each other's families into the visitation room, you know, to now being here. And yeah, those are my brothers. Honestly, when you go through that struggle and that hardship, you get connected through that experience, especially when you're holding each other down.
All right, so you all heard internships, if anybody's interested in internships.
I got-
If any wants
yeah.
to know more about this, you can always get in contact with this man. He is on TikTok.
Yeah.
What is it? Christopher Life.
Yeah,
Willard.
Christopher Life Willers. Or you could just Google my name, Christopher Willers, and you'll be able to find everything. But I do got internships. Y'all can, hey, can I put my email out real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
My email is chris.willers, WILLARS, at the life, huh? Oh yeah, chris.willers at thelifeunit.org. And then I know you can get it. We can get it to you if anybody wants to inquire about internship opportunities or any of the work that I'm doing on the digital space. And also, I'm always here to help young people. If you guys want to learn how to just develop your brands online or storytelling, anything like that, I don't know. Always here to help. Always here to assist and connect for sure. And thank y'all for.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all.
All right, what's the
All right, guys, you have a good one.
I'll see you at 12:30.
Yep, 12:30. Stay free. See y'all later.
All right, bye.
All right, y'all. Peace to y'all, man. We out here working really quick. I appreciate everybody who was hopping on. I don't even know what was going on, man. I'm glad y'all were able to hop on. I was supposed to go in person. Shout out to anybody that's watching this. Listen, y'all don't have to pay for the flights. If there's a school that'll let me in, a juvenile center, I got my flight covered. Y'all just get me from the airport. I'm going to fly back the same night. We ain't even got to do a room. None of that. But I'm grateful. I just got off a hour-long lecture at Assumption University. I have one more at 12:30 p.m. Somebody let me know if I should go live again during that time. I'll go live again during that one as well if y'all think I should. But I am grateful. I am grateful for the opportunity to tell my story. Grateful for the opportunity to speak to young people. Grateful for the opportunity just, man, hopefully just shine some light on some very real situations, man. I appreciate everybody, man, showing love. I see y'all. I couldn't even keep up, man. Y'all been gifting and liking, and we got 25,000 likes, 150. I didn't even see what's going on right now. Good God Almighty, what the heck? Y'all over here working. What the man? I love y'all, man. Y'all be showing that love first thing in the morning, man. Come on, man. But I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful I got the opportunity just to connect with college students, young, brilliant minds that are going to be shaping today, tomorrow, and the next. I'm older. I always say, yo, I need to get out the way, let the young people do the joint. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just here to share my story and hopefully motivate some people to not go down the same road that I did. It is a very scary thing, prison. And you will never see me up here highlighting, trying to make light of it. None of that. I'm trying to give it to y'all in a very real way. And as a matter of fact, I'm usually humble, but I'm trying to give it to you in a way you've never seen before. And I mean that. There's a lot of people that are talking about prison. They're giving it, the messages are jumbled. They're watered down, and the point isn't true. The point is to stay free. The point is when you end up going in there, it's not a game. The point is if you in a situation like that, I'm telling you, you understand what I'm saying? They not playing. There's no reset. I'm watching videos, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sitting there, I'm watching these young people, and I'm like, yo, there's no reset. It's not Call of Duty. They gonna take. It's different now, and things are getting worse. You understand what I'm saying? Things are getting worse. We can't beat the system. When I walk into a room, let me tell you something. I'm never trying to tell somebody what to do. Never, ever, ever, ever. I'm just trying to tell you what happens if you do something, or what could happen. I'm gonna say that because some people are like, oh, I could get away. I ain't saying you can't. I ain't saying you can't get away. But what if you don't? Because no matter how you look at it, it's 50-50. That's not a gamble I'm willing to take. And I wish back in the day I would have thought that way. You understand what I'm saying? But I didn't. I stopped. But I'm here now, though. I'm focused, and I'm trying to help break the cycle. I'm trying to get out here every day and say something to somebody that I wish somebody would have said it to me. It's nobody's fault that I ended up where I was at. I understand. But, man, I was 19, man. I needed a big homie, an OG, somebody to come talk to me. Tell me something good. Anything. Tell me another way. Tell me don't ever do that because this is what's going to happen and this is what could it be. I wish. But guess what? We here now. So we getting cranked up, man. We working. We everywhere. We everywhere. We everywhere. Read between the lines. We everywhere. We got merch. We got everything. You understand what I'm saying? So y'all make sure you DM me for the merch. I got y'all. I'm going to send y'all the links. And I appreciate the respect, man. It's 11:11, by the way. I got another call in 19 minutes with another school, man. Shout out to Westminster, man. We're working right now. You understand? Kendu, thank you, man. Zulu, $7. You send your prescription, you get the fire frames. I got a black pair too for like $10. Believe that, man. But listen, man, 10-11 for Houston. That's right. Different time zones, man. Shout out to H-Town too. H-Town like number 4 in the algorithm. When you look at like everybody that's rocking, it's like New York, Chicago, LA, H-Town. Shout out to the. Am I still in GA? I'm still in GA, man. Most definitely in GA. You never had a yellow bag? You definitely don't want the yellow bag right now, y'all. But listen, 8:12 in Cali. It's early in the morning, man. My name is Christopher Life Willis. I'm in 2003, I was sentenced to 144 years, and that's what I was talking about today. 144 years I was sentenced to in 2003. Google my name or look at the playlist. Part 1, how I got 144 years. Listen to that. You're gonna hear my story and tell me what you think. You think it was valid? You think it was valid? Lulu Lean, I appreciate that. Everybody else has been gifted and I didn't see. I appreciate that, y'all. I really do. Because I know I ain't been keeping up. I ain't that fast. But that's what I'm doing, man. I'm telling my story, and then I'm telling my story about what happens after you come home from prison. You know what I'm saying? And then we talking about what happens if you push through. You understand what I'm saying? That's what we doing. Arietti, I appreciate that. 535. Hopefully I said that right. I definitely don't be trying to butcher people's names, but I'm telling you, sometimes I do. Good morning to everybody too, man. Depending where y'all at, man. Good morning, man. It's another wonderful day. We free, we blessed, we moving, man. If you got somebody that's incarcerated, put it in the chats, man. And of course, put something green in the chat, man. That way I could see it. If you got somebody that's incarcerated, if you want to put where you from, just because I like to see where everybody's from. And thank you for everybody that's liking the live, sharing the live out right now, man. Somebody said put me on. Hold on, I got y'all. Hold on. Bet. That's what type time we on, man. First thing in the morning, man. I'm gonna give me a cup real quick, man. If you know what this is, then we've been to some of the same places, man. If you know what this is, then we done had some hard day. But if you know what this is, and you watching this right now, then guess what? We got Anchorage in the building, man. And that means we done made it. You understand? See, somebody asked me one time, what is the meaning, the true meaning behind the bag, and why do I use it? People also ask me, why does the OG change his glasses up? The meaning behind the bag, first and foremost, this is some of the best coffee you will ever have. You understand me? The best instant coffee, and it's just coffee. That's it. Somebody was like, is it something else? No, it's not something else. It's just coffee. But let me tell you something. Over this bag right here, it go down. It go down. People set their alarm clocks by this. Somebody said World Lansky used to sell fingers. I get 55 spoons out of bag. Each spoon is one soup. One soup at the time was 33 cents. 3 soups is $1. 55 divided by 3 is, I can't do math fast enough, but I bet you I made more than what this costs. I couldn't even get that math out. My mind started glitching out, y'all. I see South Africa in the building. Lafayette, Louisiana, man. I appreciate y'all. Man, no problem. Hey, look, I really appreciate talking to that class, man. And they had some really good questions, y'all. I'm talking about really good questions. I'm feeling that, man. Shout out to Assumption U, the criminology class. They had the fire questions. They was locked in. We're going back in round 2 again, man. Listen, so I'm up here. I got another call at 11:30. We working, man. We working. We slow down for what? Slow down for what? You understand me? I'm about to heat up another cup of some of the best Joe you ever have. You understand me? And then I'm about to get cranked up and get going. I appreciate everybody sharing where you're from. If you've been incarcerated, if you've had a loved one incarcerated, and as always, man, y'all feel free to put your questions in the chat. That's what I'm here for. I love answering questions. You know, Phoenix, I see you, man. I know I'm definitely gonna need it, man. I'm definitely gonna need it. Been home 16 years now. That's what's up. The Bustelo is fire. The Bustelo had you ready to just run down the street too, though. You drink that before the workout. When I'm coming to Arkansas, listen, any school, any recovery center, any juvenile center, anywhere in the country, well, technically in the world, I'll come. Y'all ain't even got to pay my flights. Just give me the direct connect so I can come into a school, recovery center, whatever it is, and yo, I can go talk. I'm going to pull up. That's it. 3 Jinx, message me, Jinx. I got you. I got you. And it's on my profile, too. My email. Somebody said that Maxwell, Blue Bad, USP Atwater. How you feel about Trump to expunge records from the last one? Is he? I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't see anything. I try not to pay attention to politics too hard. I mean, I do, but I don't, if that makes sense. Keith, you got me right. Yo, if you know about this, put some yellow in the chat before we go, man. If you know about this, put some yellow in the chat, man. If you done had a cup of this, or put a coffee cup emoji in the chat. I need to see how many real Keefy aficionados out here, man. But yeah, man, listen. That was a great lecture. Great conversation, great, whatever. Public speaking opposite, whatever it is, man. It was good stuff. But listen, I will be back up here later, y'all. I appreciate y'all. We had 30,000 likes. That is crazy. I see some yellow in the chats. I see that yellow. All my Keefy drinkers, put the yellow in the chat, man. One of my homeboys like, yo, stop posting about Keefy. I'm like, definitely gonna keep posting about Keefy, man. I ain't gonna lie. Like, it must be posted. We got more content on the way, man. Appreciate everybody that's locking in with the OG Chronicles too, man. We got the merch out. We got the shirts. We got the coffee cups. They're fire. Y'all can message. We get that over there. But I appreciate. What the heck is that? Oh my God! What was that? A meteor shower. I ain't never seen no meteor shower. That junk made me sing. Lord Jesus. Left Sussex too, man. I'm glad they closed it down, brother. In my 29 years. What up, nephew? Hey, I'm glad they closed down Sussex too. They knew they had to close that down. I used to be telling people like, yo, if somebody told me they've been to Sussex too, they got my respect. They got my respect, yo. That's all I know, man. Somebody said they drinking the Keefy right now. Right now. I'm a Heat Press, gotta get a Keefy shirt. I got the OG Chronicles shirts and coffee cups, hats, all that stuff, man. B Maverick, just message me. We got you. Message me and we got you. Anybody want to message me for the merch? We got you. Definitely got you. That's good, man. Somebody said overturn a conviction, man. We were speaking about the system as a whole today. And not just the system, but the impact of what happens when an individual goes. You know, what happens when an individual makes a bad decision? What happens when an individual, just doesn't weigh the consequences of his decisions out? And what happens when you run into a situation that you can't get out of, So that's what I was grateful to speak about today. And most importantly, too, I would also say is I got to really speak about the impact of that mental health piece. And I wanted to be able to highlight that. Time went by fast, but I feel like that often gets overlooked and it needs to be looked at more. You know what I'm saying? So I was grateful to be able to speak on that as well. Yeah, Sussex won, definitely, man. I never went to Wallens Ridge, yo. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that, man. Yeah, it sticks with you. It does. It definitely does, man. But listen, I appreciate y'all. I'm getting ready to get set up for the second call. If I should go live for the 12:30 class when I speak to him, man, put something in the chat. Put a Y or something in the chat just so I can see. And if so, I'll go live again. I don't want to go crazy with the same joints, but it's going to be similar. Telling my story again. And really just, answering some more questions. Hopefully they bring all the questions. I see some Y's, so I'm definitely going to go live again. I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all showing so much support right now, man. But yeah, I'm going to go live again. Hopefully they're going to bring the questions in the fire. Make sure next time y'all see me go live when I'm not dealing with the class, y'all make sure you bring the questions too, man. We're here to interact, engage. And if you've never been to prison, ask questions too. Anybody that wants to merch, make sure you message me. I'm going to send y'all the link right away. Get y'all that going, man. Yes, sir. Stay free, BJ. Y'all know what it is, man. And that's it. I will see y'all soon. I got some more work to do and content getting posted in a little bit. That's it, man. Peace, y'all. Stay free.